things just got worse and worse and worse as the night went on. Again, valiant effort down the stretch for the Bucs. Just too little, too late. Let's go down and let's see what Coach Fletch and the rest of the crew has to say. As always, go Bulls. So let's head into the locker room right now and see what the guys have to say about that one. Wow. Where do the Buccaneers go from here? What an incredible atmosphere. What a good win for the Tampa Bay Lightning. They snapped a 7-game winning streak. How we feeling, Bucs Nation? It's time to party, baby.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Recher podcast. Happy Thursday, March 3rd, 2025. Hope everybody is doing well, whether you're here in the Tampa Bay area or abroad. What is going on, Benny, Bart, and the whole crew? Make sure you subscribe, like, questions, comments, concerns, leave them there at the bottom of the screen to be sure they get read. Make sure you fire up that super chat. Every single contribution helps keep this thing rolling. Follow me on all social media platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok. I am everywhere. Go check me out. It never, ever, ever, ever stops. It is a little bit of a weird weekend. I'm so glad that the Final Four here has pretty much like all the lights are shining on it. Lightning out of town, Rays out of town, USF Baseball is out of town. So, man, I am so excited to see what is going on there. NCAA Women's Final Four. Great stuff there. Lightning back in action tonight, north of the border in Ottawa to take on the Senator, Luke Glendenning back with the crew. He's there practicing with the team there. Morning skate today. We'll talk all things Bolts with our guy, Eddie Encina from the Tampa Bay Times at 1:30 today. He's checking in from the airport. I think he's heading up there. I didn't tell me where he was going. He just said he was going to the airport. So we'll chat with him at 1:30 today. NFL talk with our guy, Ira Kaufman, Joe Bucs fan. 1 p.m. He was out there in West Palm at the NFL meetings. He was chatting with Jason Light. He was talking to Todd Bowles. What did those guys have to say? What kind of behind-the-scenes conversations was our guy, Ira Kaufman, having over there at the NFL meetings? We'll catch up with him. We'll also, we talk a little bit of everything. It's always a blast. One of our favorite matchups, one of our favorite just discussion pieces is hanging out with our guy Ira Kaufman. And we love hanging out with him. At 12:15 today, Brady North is going to join us, the assistant hitting coach for the Tampa Bay Rays. And listen, I can't be mad at Tampa Bay for what happened yesterday against Paul Skeens and the Pirates. This is one of the best pitchers in all of baseball. And if you're going to overreact to one game, I'm telling you to be patient. I'm telling you to keep things in perspective. 4-2 through 6 games, we'll take it. That's what you want to do. Win series. But you look at what Paul Skeens can do. He's really coming into his own. He's an elite pitcher in the game. And if you don't get him early, you're not going to get him at all. We saw some difficulties for the Rays hitters. I think it's a well-deserved day off today. Refresh, recoup, and then get back at it. You're going into a bandbox now, heading over to Texas to take on the Rangers. Hopefully the pitchers can still do their job, but make sure they keep the ball down because the ball flies out of there. 12:45 today, we got a special surprise from our Tampa Bay Rowdies, and it is right here. This is the box. We're going to open it at 12:45 today. What do they have in store for me? If anybody else wants to send me stuff, I'll bite off of the John Gruden thing. I don't care. You want to support here in the Tampa Bay area? If any of those high school teams want to send me clothes or hats and stuff like that, we can do that as well. Unboxing video, baby. It's the way of the world, man. It is the way of the world. I want to get to this conversation. Carlos Baserva, thank you for chiming in. Just want to get your opinion on Cash removing B. Lau in the 8th. When you look at what Brandon Lau was doing in that game, and I was asking some of the people that were at the game, and we'll ask Brady North that at 12:15 today. Some of those swings early on in that game were not good. And this is what the Rays do. This is how they operate. And if they see a guy struggling, if they see that some of the numbers for a guy doesn't particularly match up well with the guy that he's going against, then they're going to take him out regardless of who it is. Now, I am always going to err on the side of sometimes you want to stick with your players, right? You stick with your big guns. You stick with a guy like Brandon Lau. It's hard, right? It's a hard question to answer, Carlos, because of people can say, and I know Dolan, I love you, buddy. I'm sick of analytics. I wish Cash would use more of his gut. I get that, but guys, we have to understand that the analytics are also the way that they're able to put these guys in a position to succeed. Like their analytics, the stats, the things that they compute enable them to bring a guy like Jake Mangum up into play so well and have Cam Meisner in the lineup and maybe find some of these guys that other people don't find. So we can't just bash the analytics when they don't go well and then forget about them when they're utilized in a way for the team to be successful. With that being said, and Carlos, I think, my opinion on it. My opinion on it is that I've always thought that the Rays were maybe a little bit too reliant on the analytics, too reliant on, well, this is what the numbers say. And at times you have to kind of, what does my gut tell me? I'd rather go down, forget about what the analytics say. I'd rather go down with one of my best hitters, even if the numbers kind of go against it, because all those numbers are doing is giving you a percentage of what has happened. It's not a guarantee, because for as much as, all right, that's let's say the 19% of the time that it does happen, there's still another 81% of the time that it could work out, right? It hasn't, but it could. So it's one thing that I really believe it is a little bit of a disconnect with the Rays and the people here in the Tampa Bay area, is that there's such a reliance on said analytics. But where do you find that balance? Where do you find that balance of, okay, we're going to use the analytics, but at times when we see the game in front of us, because you have to trust your gut, when do we go that way? Because you got to look at it from the other side. Again, we're looking at yesterday's performance and going, how do you take a guy like that out? But let's say you keep Brandon Lau in there, right? Or let's say you keep a guy in there where the analytics show you got to make a move, but the coach goes with his gut and then the guy strikes out or the guy fails. Then people say, well, why don't you go with the numbers? Why don't you go with the analytics? This is what got you here. This is what allows you to be successful against these high market or high payroll and big market teams. I get it. I still think it's a work in progress. I still think it's something that Kevin Cash and the Rays are trying to decipher on what do they do? How do they utilize these analytics that have given them the ability to go up against the Yankees and the Red Sox every year, but also have that dash of, hey, sometimes you just have to trust your eyes. It's tough when you're not in that position. I know it's easier from the outside to say what you would do. And thank you very much, Carlos, for the kind words. And maybe that's one of the things that's holding the Rays back from really, getting to the top of that mountain, right? Finding that right balance of the analytics and going with your gut. But if there's anybody that is, I just feel like what Kevin Cash has been able to do with his communication, with so many things that have changed the uniquity of just this team and playing here in the Tampa Bay area, not many people have been able to look at this entire situation and be able to come out with more and more profitable solutions than our guy, Kevin Cash. So you got to tip your hat to him for sure. Big news today from the St. Pete City Council as the council members vote 7-1 to approve replacing Tropicana Field's roof that was shredded by Hurricane Milton last year. I remember I was on air with BBC News out there, and I think it was in Malaysia, as it happened. The city's going to spend $22.5 million for a new Teflon-coated fiberglass roof made of the same material as the original. About half of the total estimated cost to fix the stadium tallied in November at $55.7 million. This is another thing here. Just that second paragraph there with, they thought it was going to be 55, but it was actually less. This goes back into the argument about Stu Sternberg, and it was like, oh, the cost of, repairing everything downtown and the cost of pushing everything back was going to cost this much. And then when the city and the county said, all right, well, show your work, show your numbers, and they couldn't show it, sometimes it's less. Yeah, okay, sometimes it could be more. Sometimes it's less. And I'm sure they would want to see what those numbers were like. And it looks like this is going to be that, major step towards the Tampa Bay Rays returning to St. Pete and playing at Tropicana Field to start the 2026 season. City required, because they are the landlord, to make the Trop playable They're expected to play home games back in the Dome through the 2028 season. Remember, with the whole thing happening with the Hurricanes, it was supposed to be at the end of the 2027 season, but it got pushed back a year, so it's 2028. Brandy Gabbard, council member, I'd much rather be spending that money in hurricane recovery and helping residents in our most affected neighborhoods, but this is our obligation. It certainly is. Where's that money coming from? Council members voted to transfer or lend $2.5 million from the city's parking revenue fund, $7.6 million from the commercial insurance fund, and $12.8 from a $50 million loan the city took out in December. The vote also included an additional $500,000 plus to cover project oversight. The council still needs to vote on non-roof related repairs such as metal panels, sports lighting, audio-visual equipment, and drywall, flooring, carpets, and those votes are supposed to come in the next couple of months. So a positive sign that the Rays will be back at Tropicana Field to start the 2026 season. And I know a lot of people out there were looking at the pictures and some of the media members that were allowed to go inside of Tropicana Field yesterday, and it is surreal. It is unbelievable. And I know Evan Axelbank was one guy that was in there. He was posting a bunch of pictures and did such a great job of just showing everybody. And you just like look at this picture here. I'm gonna show it to you guys real fast. I mean, it's just we miss it, man. It's weird to not be able to be there in that spot. Here, let's see if there we go. I mean, just wild, man. It's wild to look at it and man, and to think about it, right? It seems like the roof is so much lower, but to see these first pictures at Tropicana Field, everything taped because everything covered because, or as much as you can, because there is no roof, and we know that we have that rain here in the Tampa Bay area. So good job to Evan, and yeah, I mean it's good that there's some resolution, and it's good to know that there's some focus going forward to get the Rays back at Tropicana Field, but to get those pictures, and I don't know if any of you have driven by there. I took my parents by there last week when they were in town, and it sucks, man. It's so surreal to drive past it on 275. But hey, man, I mean, you got to make the best of a bad situation. And right now, that is exactly what the Rays are doing. And now you're adjusting. And we talked to Matt Joyce on Monday. We talked to Denard Span yesterday on the program about those adjustments and both those guys being outfielders and saying one of the first things, hey, we're playing on real grass instead of turf. It's going to be better for those outfielders that are a little bit older and getting used to playing in the sun and having the elements and knowing that you're not going to play in the same type of atmosphere. It's not going to be 72 and you'll have a controlled climate. It's a little bit different there. And also hitting, because that's something, and we'll talk to Brady about that here in a second. That's one thing, and I talked to Willie Adamas about this many years ago. It's a little bit of an adjustment, hitting inside, especially after hitting outside during spring training. Yeah, it's an adjustment for certain guys. So I think, and I've said this many times before, if there's one team that can deal with the craziness of this season and the uniquity of this season, and just looking at the games, so many games at home and then so many games on the road, and having these 6-game trips back home in July and August, and having to deal with the elements, I think it's the Rays. There's other teams out there that may get a little bit too, all right, well, how can I deal with this? I don't know if I'm, and they're just going to let all of the outside noise affect them. We know for a fact what the Rays have been able to do is they've been able to compartmentalize everything that has been thrown their way over the years. And I think that's the type of guys that you're bringing in-house. The ability to know that, hey, you may not start today, but you may get in the lineup. You got to be ready at all times, right? And it's communication. That's where the brilliance of Kevin Cash comes in. That's where the brilliance of Kyle Snyder comes in, is letting these guys know and always communicating with them. Hey, you may not get the starting nod today, but you have to be ready, because a pinch hit opportunity may happen in the third, in the fourth, in the fifth, in the ninth. You just never really know. And that is a true strength. And it's hard to quantify that with numbers. But when you see it, and you see so many contributions from like young guys and guys that get called up and guys that come up big in pinch hitting opportunities, like that doesn't happen if these guys aren't ready and they don't know their roles. So the communication within that team as a whole, I think that's been kind of the secret sauce of the Rays and why they've been so good over this last decade, 15, 20 years here in the Tampa Bay area. All right, let's bring him in. Friend of the program, Rays assistant hitting coach, our guy Brady North. Tampa Bay Rays. What's going on, brother? How are you?
What's up, Jay? How we doing, man?
I'm good, man. I like that hat. What is that hat from?
That's Link Soul, man. It's
Nice,
a
dude.
good company out of Southern California. It's
I like.
awesome. Lot of us wear it in the clubhouse.
I love it. Brady North, our guy. What is it like first day off after the season starts?
It's good, man. It's good. We got to go to the pool today with the boys. We fly out this afternoon, so it was good to be home for the morning.
I hear you, man. What is it like to see? And I know you guys have probably seen it, but to see those pictures of the Trop, man, it's like it's still so surreal, man. I mean, you and I, we've been there for opening day for so many years, and to see those pictures, it's kind of wild, isn't it?
It was crazy, man. During spring, I had to go down or had to go up to go through the cage and see what we wanted to bring from the Trop to Steinbrenner, and just being there felt eerie, man. It was like a little emotional seeing that in that state. Something you're used to kind of being like, even growing up here, right? Like that's a staple. You're driving down 275, you see the Trop, but being inside of it was definitely eerie.
Yeah, I bet, man. So how has that been how has that adjustment been for the team as a whole, as you know, for the hitters, the pitchers, for everybody? You know, just it's a new home, man. It's a new home. It's working outside. Like, how do you think the guys have been able to handle that whole thing?
The guys have been great, man. They really have. Like, credit to them, just taking it in stride. And we're being a little creative how we're doing our pregame work, splitting up fields, having guys sit on one field just to get inside sooner. We're very fortunate the facilities at GSM are amazing. So that's made it a lot easier as well. But the guys have been great. Like, I haven't heard a complaint. So that's always good.
Is there a conversation about what is going to happen in the summer when it gets hot as heck? Do you like, especially that pregame stuff when you have a normal 7 o'clock start and you're out there at 3-4 o'clock and you're baking? Is there an idea of like, hey, we got to hydrate more, we got to make sure that we're not spending as much time outside? Is that built into the plan for the season, or do you just kind of take it as you go?
I think it's definitely built in. Something that we've already made the adjustment is shorts are allowed now outside.
Okay.
Before, that's just something you didn't see. Everyone's kind of in pants, but now players are driving like the decision to wear shorts outside for batting practice and stuff. So there's one adjustment, but there's definitely a plan in place those middle months where it's going to get really, really hot, as we know. But it's going to be mostly player driven, how they're feeling, and make those adjustments from there.
Cashy going to still throw BP?
Yeah, we're trying to get him out there.
So is he done? Is he not throwing BP anymore?
No, he is.
Okay,
we're doing a lot of mixed stuff. So he's working on his slider. He wants to get the guys out. He doesn't like getting hit. So
I love that he's working on his ERA when everybody else is trying to hit. Let's talk about the start of the season, man. What was opening day like to be there? It's baseball outside, and this. It's a different animal, and it's the first of it's a unique season, man. It's nothing. There's never going to be another one quite like this one. What was opening day like that against Colorado?
It was really cool, man. We were actually you could feel the energy, like you said. It's just different. Outside baseball is different. It was a lot different for us, especially just looking up and seeing a much more intimate setting with the fans right there on top of you. Personally being from Tampa, like being able to look out, like I saw like 3 or 4 people that I'd never seen at a game before. I'm like, hey. So just that was a cool aspect of it. But we felt the effects right away though. Opening day, Aranda's ball to right was like a 90% homer. Wind brought it back.
Wow.
B-Lau's ball to center game 2 was like a 90% homer. So we felt the effects pretty early, kind of like, all right, those are homers in the Trop, but we'll deal with it, So
yeah, you got to adjust, man. You got to adjust. One guy that's adjusted, I mean, Mangum, Jake freaking Mangum. Like, this guy has taken the freaking baseball world by storm. What is your first memory of meeting him, working with him, and just tell us, like, what is this guy like? What is it like to be able to see a dude like that just go on an absolute heater over the first 6 games?
I mean, you cheer for a guy like that, right? Those are the things that you see, those stories. Guy, I think he has like 7 years in the minor leagues, just batting. He's the SEC hits king. We call him the mayor because, he's just, the personality is just so big, and he could talk to anyone and make you feel like you've known him for years. So, you pull for him. Seeing what he's doing has been very, very special, and I think we've all really enjoyed it.
How about Meisner, man? He hits that walk-off in the opening day. Like, you could not have written a better script than having that guy hit the home run and to be able to end that game on a high note.
That was awesome, man, because, his short stint last year with us up in the big leagues was, he had some tough matchups. I think he debuted against Hader, so he didn't get an easy introduction to the major leagues. But, credit to him. He went into the offseason, made a ton of adjustments, and that was really, really cool to see get his first homer as a walk-off on opening day. That was awesome.
Tell me about Junior Caminero. I know we spoke about him last year. You were able to see firsthand what he was able to do in the, I say off season, but there ain't no off season for that guy. But just what's the biggest adjustment? What's the biggest development in his game? And what have you seen from him so far here in the 2025 season?
I think physically he's made a ton of adjustments. He looks really good physically. He's in really good shape. I'm really excited for the season he's about to put together. There's a superstar in there. So exciting all around, defensively, offensively. He's been very fun to watch.
Is he a guy where, I mean, how do you approach a guy like that, being one of the hitting coaches there? He's got so much God-given talent, and you and I have spoken about this a lot over the years, where you kind of just sit there and like, all right, what do you want? What can I help? Can I toss? Can I give you feedback? Like, what kind of guy is Junior Caminero? Is he a guy that wants a lot of information? Is he kind of a guy that it's a little bit more hands off? Like, how does that whole thing work?
It's a pretty good combo. I wouldn't say he wants a lot of information. He wants enough information to have himself prepared for that at bat throughout the game in terms of information like that. When it comes to his swing, he's very feel based. We're more like rumble strips for guys like that, where like he gets a little off course, we just kind of direct him back onto attention. We actually try to control his effort a lot. When you hit the ball 115 or 108 off front toss, you got to regulate it a little bit. Like, hey, calm down. We don't need full max.
How do you do that, Brady? Like, how do you reel a guy like that back in? Because you don't want to harness, right? He's like a racehorse,
Yeah.
right? You don't want to
right.
harness the greatness there, but like, what's the mindset of that? What's the thought process there? And how do you go about discussing that with him, realizing that, like, hey, you can't swing out of your, is that what it is? Like, you can't swing out of your shoes every at bat. How does that go about?
It's more not even so much during the game. It's going to be more during his work. Like, hey, you don't have to touch top speed right now. Like, treat it as a progression. Chad and I have really tried to hone him in on that. Like, hey, these early flips work at 50, 60%, and then let intensity and adrenaline naturally rev your engine up for you. Because when the game starts, man, these guys, the adrenaline's pumping. They're ready to go. So you got to just tame him into where all his work is done at very low intensity. So when he gets to that top intensity, he's not over revving the engine.
Do you see that, maybe not from him, but from other guys? Like, how do you work with a guy where it's like everything you do in the cage, everything you did in the minors, you're like, oh, this guy's about to go off. This guy's about to do his thing. And then in the game, it just doesn't translate. Is that kind of like the $1 million question? Like, because we know obviously there's a guy throwing a ball, he's trying to get him out. It's not like he's hitting off a tee, right? But what's the, I guess, way to go about something like that conversation with a guy where it's like, damn, man, you're doing everything right. You just got to focus on A, B, and C, and then everything will happen for you.
I mean, it happens all the time, right? I think the reminding part, like you just said, like, hey, you're swinging good pitches, you're taking the balls, you've had some unlucky outcomes. Reminding guys of that. I think Chad and I's thing has been, the game is going to teach us. What we do in the cage is important, but the speed of the real game is what we're looking at. Like, you're swinging, like you just said, off the tee. Like Chad, I remember my first year, Chad saying this. He's like, when we start playing off a tee, I'll talk to you about your tee swing. And it made a lot of sense to me. Like, yeah, you know what? Because I've coached some tee swings before, like,
right.
And you're right. Like, it doesn't matter. What you're doing off the tee doesn't matter if it doesn't translate. So we pay attention to those game live swings. What's the intensity like there? Are things breaking down? Are they swinging at the right pitches? That's where we go to really get our gauge of where this guy's at.
So what are you focusing on then for the tee work and then the front flips? Is that just mechanical stuff then overall?
So it's going to be more like that intensity. Are you just moving under control? Like, or are you just trying to hit this ball as hard as you can on a ball that's not moving? Because if you're doing that, we're working on the wrong stuff.
What about a guy like Yandy? What kind of guy is he like when he's hitting there? Because he's got such a good opposite field approach. And, I know he's kind of working through things right now, but what's his mindset when he's in there working in the cage and trying to improve on his swing?
He loves to stabilize his lower half. When that lower half's up and his hands are just working, he's throwing the barrel out front. That's kind of his main focus is. His cage work is so fun to watch because it's like he doesn't miss hit it. You're like, how are you not? This ball's moving. Man, he's throwing nasty sinkers, and you're all over the barrel. Sometimes with him, it's like his timing's everything. We're watching his timing. When he's on time, I don't think there's a better hitter out there.
So when you look at a guy like that struggle early on, is it kind of on your aspect of like, hey, it's going to come, right? Is it one of those things where you look at and you're just like, hey, man, there's no reason to, do you have to do a little bit of that of kind of like, all right, let's settle it down. You're putting in the right work. Eventually it's going to kind of coincide and work together.
Yandy's been around. He knows, and he knows
Yeah.
that he's on the barrel. There's going to be some frustration because hits aren't there. Sure, that's all of us. We all want success. But Yandy's been around the block. Guys want a batting title.
Yeah.
He knows the ups and downs. And even what he did last year, how he had that, I want to say it was like a month and a half, 2 months really bad and ended up hitting, 280?
It's amazing.
You don't see that. So
Mm-hmm.
there's no worry or panic from Yandy at all, or any of us about Yandy.
What is the game plan for a day like yesterday when you're going against Paul Skeens? He's one of the most popular pitchers of the game. Is there a focus on kind of limiting it down and blocking out all that outside noise because you know what his stuff is like and try not to make too much of what his stuff is? Do you put I don't want to say more pressure, but do you put more focus on like, hey, you may only get one pitch. You try to get him early. Like, what's the mindset as a group? Because we know what this guy can do. How do you go into a game like yesterday knowing what you're going up against?
Well, Paul Skeens is really, really good. I mean, It's really impressive to watch in person. For us, it was just reminding them, one, he is a human still, and you guys are major leaguers too. Like we got a shot. We have no chance against this guy. You guys are really good. That's a big reminder. But yeah, I think we yesterday were just making sure the at-bats were going to be competitive, that he wasn't just going to get us out on 3 pitches and try to work some counts and make sure if he did get ahead, we stayed in there. We just didn't give it away, which you saw us have. I think we had multiple 9-pitch at-bats, 8-pitch at-bats, which a couple of them were like 0-2 to 9 pitches. To do that against Paul Skeens alone, regardless of the outcome, is really that's a victory. That's a really well fought at-bat. So we really harped on that. Like we saw those at-bats, we made sure those guys knew, hey, that's a hell of a job.
That's kind of hard for people that aren't in the baseball world to understand, right? Like they like running up the pitch count is not something that people outside of baseball, that's when you say that's a victory. Like, what do you mean it's a victory? Got out. It's like, man, you don't know the dividends that pays later on. Like, you just don't know if you get him out after 6, you get him out after 7, to prevent him from going all 9. I'm with you, man.
Or just putting stress on that inning, right? Like you're putting stress on that inning where that inning alone, instead of 15 pitches, it was 27. Like there's power in that. Where he's forced to now execute 27 times instead of 15. So, and I thought our guys did a pretty good job of having tough at-bats against arguably probably the best pitcher in the game right now.
No doubt about it. Does the approach change for a day game like that in the middle of the week?
I think a lot of times it's going off night game to that. It's just more like, hey, get what you need, make sure you're ready to play.
Right.
There's not a ton of pregame work. There's just more taking exactly what they need.
Is out of all the time since you've been with the big club, is Skeens the guy with the best stuff that you've seen?
There's a lot of good stuff. There's a lot of good stuff out there, I would say at this age, like how young he is and how the command is very impressive. How he locates. I mean, yesterday he was striking that splinker thing, whatever you want to call it, at 94.
He threw one, I think it was 96 for a called strike 3, and I go, come on, dude. Come on.
Yeah. He fell behind 3-0 to, I think, Aranda and maybe Caballero. He fell behind 3-0 and got all the way back with that to strike him out. And I just was like, you don't see that.
The ability to throw that hard with a little bit of a hump to it is just, and the ride that he has on this 4-seam. Like, you look at some of those, you're like, oh, that's not that pitch. And you're like, yeah, it is. He just throws that freaking hard. What is the thought process? Because a lot of people talk about the analytics. Big topic of conversation is Brandon Lau coming out yesterday. I mean, how do you guys balance the analytics when it comes to pitcher hitter matchups, and how does Kashi kind of use that, but also have feel and use his gut, right? Because obviously you guys are so analytically driven. It's the way you guys can compete, by not, you're not going to go out there and buy a guy that's batting 300 with 45 home runs and 140 RBIs. You guys have to do it in a different way. But how do you kind of balance that out as a group of understanding and also communicating with the players? Like, at times we're going to be analytics, sometimes we're going to use, the kind of the feel for the game. What's that conversation like?
Well, I think, like, Chad and I, what we do with all of our guys, and I may have mentioned this in the past, is like as soon as you become a Ray, we say you're not starting today, but you are playing. Like you will
Mhm.
play today, despite not being in the starting lineup. Like it's going to happen. Um, like we get ahead of that with the guys. Cashy is probably the most balanced. Like he really, the players know if he's doing it because he truly believes this is going to give us the best chance to win, and our players are fully invested in that mindset.
Right.
If this gives us the best chance to win, we are willing to do it. Even if it doesn't look like it should on like to the uneducated eye on it. Our
Yeah.
players are super invested on the decisions we're making, and I think Cashy does a great job. One, explaining it to him and using, like you said, his gut and the information to make the best decision for us to win.
What was it like to see all of those young guys? Obviously you guys are focused one day at a time. You can't get too far ahead of yourselves, but for spring training and to see Carson Williams and to see all these different guys, and you're like, and I mean, you were in the minor league system, right? Like, what is it like to know, like, hey, I'm happy with the team we got, but it's hard not to think, like, man, when that guy gets up here, right? It's exciting because you not every team out there has a great farm system. What was that like working with those young guys, and how exciting will it be when they finally get up with the big league and they're full time?
It's going to be exciting, but I'll tell you, credit to our minor league group. I mean, those the coordinators, the coaches down there, those guys being up around the major league group, they really showed how prepared they are and ready, what they've learned, how they digest the information. That's something that's really opened my eyes. Is the next wave of players, they know the information probably better than some of the coaches out
Mhm.
there. Like because they've come up in that generation of like using information to prepare, to design their practice environment. So if we were watching these, 20, 21-year-old guys saying, "Hey, I want this because we're facing this guy," and you're like, when I was 20, I was thinking about making sure I'm on the field on time. Like this guy's over here talking about this guy's pitch shape, and I'm like, wow, that's
Mhm.
impressive. So I think from that standpoint, that was really awesome to see, for those young guys to be very mature, and I want to say almost advanced mindset already, that you see at the major league level.
What about Chandler Simpson? I mean, this is a guy straight out of a video game. Uh, Listen, I mean, I don't know if you're necessary. Like, he's just an old school, put the ball in play and run. And it's when you're a guy that's watching that and just knowing that he is striking fear in the pitching and the defense, knowing if they don't field this ball cleanly, he's going to be on first, and there's probably a good chance he'll be on second and third if they don't do a great job of holding him on. What was that phenom like to watch in spring training?
Really fun, man. There was the most impressive one was the third baseman was like pulled up in, he hits it right at him, and he's like gliding it. He's not even running, and it was like bang bang, and I was like, oh my gosh, like he was jogging, and we both,
Sometimes the outs are more impressive than the safe
yeah,
calls, right?
we were like, dude, you can run, right? You would have been safe. He's like, oh, I thought he was gonna get rid of it quicker. We were like,
Mhm.
wow, that was impressive. Like, and he was just like cruising. It was like boom, boom at first base. But he was really fun, man. He did a couple of things in the cage where he like crept up on the machine. We call it walking the dog.
Yeah, yeah.
And I mean, he was close and he was all fired up for just touching the ball, and it was awesome. Like, man, all right, he's a true competitor. Like that guy's playing to win. Um, so yeah, he's gonna be fun to watch for sure.
I asked this, and you said about that, and I know Yandy was catching a little heat about this yesterday, but I don't think it's a much of a big deal at all. I actually asked Cashy this years ago about guys not running every ground ball hard to first base, right? Because he said to me, he goes, Jay, 99.7% of the time, these are
I was just
big
gonna
league
say,
players. They're going to make the play. If we have a guy busting it down the line on a routine ground ball in June and he tears his hammy and he's out for 4 months, like that doesn't do us any well. How do you, and it's hard because I know you and I know your dad and you want to bust it down the line, right? But
yeah,
playing 25, 35 games at Gaither High ain't the same as
yeah.
playing a buck 62 in the big league. So I think that's pretty much how do you balance that though, right? How do you balance like you want guys to work hard, you want guys to leave it all on the field, but you also have to kind of understand where those spots are, right?
Oh, I just go to Cashy's point there, right? Like
Mhm.
that was Adam Frazier, I think, playing second there. He makes that play,
Yeah,
and he
he's
still
amazing.
made it.
Mhm.
Yeah, he makes that play 99 out of 100 times. We need Yandy for 162, right? Like I want his bat. Yandy's not going to win many games using his legs. I think it's a different story maybe if it's, say, a Chandler Simpson type situation where every play is bang, bang. But no one even batted an eye at it, man. I know optically it looks bad, and I get that. I'm not going to say it doesn't, but Yandy's not there to do that. Yandy's there to hit and drive runs in.
What two more things before I let you go. What's kind of the mindset as you guys head to Texas? We know it at times a place like this could be a little bit of a bandbox here, right? Where sometimes you just start looking and there's home runs flying everywhere. Mm-hmm. Offensively, how do you keep the guys in check to go like, hey, let's not try to swing for that. Let's try to just kind of stay with our game plan here.
I think our guys are really good with that. I think our guys
no discussion needed for that.
Yeah, we're not even probably going to mention that.
So what is it? What is the mindset that when you go on the road like this first time?
I think one, just being ready, right? It's first road trip. I think it's really nice that our first road trip's coming on off day. Guys are going to be able to get in, have a nice dinner, go to sleep. I think that's nice where it's not like we left the city getting in late and all that. So I think that's going to help in general. We're just going to treat it like any other day, man. Just get ready to play and do what you got to do.
Last thing. How's the family doing? How's mom, dad, your wife, your
Everybody's
sister,
good,
the
man.
kids, all the kids, the North
Everybody's
family?
Good. Everybody's good, man.
How many road trips are the little ones? How many?
They'll get all 30 this year, I think. They'll get all 30. Yeah. They'll get all. Yeah.
I was talking to your mom the other day. Gaither was at Jefferson, and I was just saying about how your two boys, Hanley and Kenley. Hanley and Kenley, I feel like they've traveled to more places than I have in my damn near 40 years of living.
We've been fortunate, man. The last 4 or 5 years, the game has taken us places to be able to travel. So we're very, very grateful for those opportunities.
You got that. And I'm grateful for you, my man. Thank you so much. Brady North,
of course, man.
Hitting coach for the Rays. Safe travels, my man. Keep up the great work. Tell everybody in the fam I said hello, and we'll do this again soon. Thanks, partner.
I will, man. Talk to you soon.
All right, buddy. One of my favorite people, one of my favorite families, the North family. I cannot say enough great things about everybody there in the North fam, but Brady, to see his growth, to see him go up through the ranks and now to be with the big club, it makes you feel good. That's a true example of great things happening to great people. And, I was coaching first base for Freedom High when Brady was playing first at Gaither back in the day. So, Brady knew Jay Recher before I was ever in radio, man, which was kind of funny. I have that discussion with some people. Sometimes they get a little surprised. I remember the first time I saw Orestes Estrada when I was with DAE, and he was like, "Hey, Coach Jay," and I was like, "Hey, what's up, buddy?" And everybody's like, "How do you, Mr. Intern, first time ever been here, how the hell do you know Orestes Estrada?" I'm like, "Man, I've been on the field, man. It's my life over here." But Brady's a great guy, man. Such a great mind, and I hope you guys enjoyed that interview. Thank Lady Evil. What a great insight about the Rays and what's going on inside the team during those opening days. Great interview. Thank you, Lady Evil. Questions, comments, concerns, leave them there at the bottom of the screen. And yeah, I mean, I think it's some good stuff there to listen to what Brady had to say about. I mean, man, we touched on so many things there. The approach for Paul Skeens, Meisner, Mangum, Junior Caminero, Yandy Diaz, the play yesterday, not running out to first base, playing in this new, playing with the new field, and him being at Tropicana Field. I mean, there's just so much going on. There's just so much that has happened already throughout the season, man. We're only 6 games in. Off today, back at it tomorrow against Texas. But I thought it was very interesting to hear what Brady had to say about Junior Caminero. I mean, Junior is the guy that you kind of, and I've always had this conversation with not just Brady, but other coaches out there. Is it easier to deal with a player that is a little bit more reserved and you got to pull it out of him? Or is it easier to deal with the guy that's go, 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 and you got to kind of rein him in? And to a man, I don't know if I've ever had anybody say the former was easier. It's always, I'd rather have a guy that's go, 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 and you try to put a little bit of a governor on him and kind of dial it down a little bit. Hey, that's okay. Bring it here, focus, dial it back, and we'll go from there. It's hard to manufacture that want, manufacture the energy and the emotion. Like you can't want it for the guy. So that's some great insight on Junior Caminero from the guy that works with him. And Mangum and Meisner and calling Mangum the mayor. And listen, the Rays just have to win series. And I told you guys before we had Brady on, there's no shame in getting, and taking an L against a guy like Paul Skeens, who is probably the best pitcher in the game right now. Best young pitcher, no doubt about it. But the way that he is so effortless in how he throws the baseball and the way he's able to throw his, I hate to even say off-speed pitches that he throws at 94, 95, 96 miles an hour. Those are off-speed pitches. Think about that. The majority of the human beings that walk this earth could train their entire life and not be able to throw the ball 95 miles an hour. I don't care who you are. This guy actually takes something off of his fastball to throw the ball that hard. That is so freaking crazy to me. Giuseppe LaRocca, that's a good Italian. Oh, was a good season for the Rays will go a long way toward keeping them in Tampa. I mean, it could. I mean, I think more in the Tampa Bay area when you look at it. But continue to go out there. 6 games, 6 sellouts there at Steinbrenner Field. So please, if you have an opportunity to go out there, do so. RaysBaseball.com. Get all your tickets. We need as many good things coming out when it comes to this team. They have to continue to play well, right? That's a point of contention that I've had the last couple of weeks is there is some people when you're looking at the Rays and they're going to be bringing up the stadium thing. And if you just joined us, the news today that came out that the St. Pete City Council has voted yes, 7-1. They will fix the roof at Tropicana Field. The team should be back in there to start the 2026 season. That is a fantastic thing to hear today. We need baseball to stay here in the Tampa Bay area. And all good signs, all good things. We need as many positive things because a lot of things in the offseason were not good when it came to the stadium, when it came to Stu Sternberg. And, we're not going to get into that today. But the team playing well will go a long way to help that and to really shine a positive light. And you look at what we see now, right? You look at what we see when it comes to this team through 6 games. If they can continue to play well, let's say they end up making the postseason and they end up making a postseason run, you got to think that place is going to be rocking. And if that place is going nuts and there's a lot of energy and emotion and people here in the Tampa Bay, on the Tampa side, people on the Tampa side really embrace it, I mean, that can only be good for the perception of what baseball can do here in the Bay Area. And I wonder that. I wonder if Commissioner Rob Manfred looks at this and what if the Rays go on a streak? What if they're in first place like the majority of the season, guys really tear it up and Junior Caminero steps to the forefront and you have more stories like Meisner and Mangum, and the Rays are the story of the summer. And that positive light is shown on the Tampa side. I wonder if Rob Manfred will really, you can only do so much, right? Because Stu owns the team. But I wonder if Rob Manfred recommends, like, hey, let's keep this thing on the Tampa side. Let's find a way to do it over here because we've always said, oh, it would be better here. Even if you agree or disagree with that. And I am one of those people that think it would be better on the Tampa side. And it's not, listen, some people, when you ask and you pose that question, it'll be there like, all right, well, I think this. I've talked to many people that are in the baseball community, whether it's high school or college or former professional athletes, but former professional players. And I'd say 95% of them have said, no doubt about it, I would go to more games if it was on the Tampa side. This isn't whether I think it would work. This is people, baseball people. Because remember, baseball is in the DNA of our city here in Tampa. I don't think you can deny that. Would it work better here in Tampa? A lot of people think, and it could be an educated opinion, but I know for a fact there's certain people that bleed baseball that would go to more games. So what does that tell you? If I'm only talking to those people, I'm sure there's others that believe the same thing. And if you have an opportunity to have a little bit of a proof of concept, like what we're getting here in 2025, maybe that is going to have the commissioner and just everybody involved with baseball to look and go, maybe we should be pushing more. Maybe we should be having baseball on this side of the bridge. We'll see. We'll see. But regardless, we want good baseball. We want this team to win because those victories, I mean, they're paramount. You win, you keep winning, you win playoff series, you win a championship, and that goes a long way. Ian and I had this discussion on the program yesterday. If you missed the Beckles and Recher podcast, it's right here on my YouTube, tiny.cc/jrecher. We had a long conversation about that. We had a conversation about winning versus winning championships and whether it would make a difference to, like, let's say the Montreal Expos or the Rays, like if you win a championship. And I think it does, because you do that, you're going to get more nationally televised games the next year. You're going to get more corporate sponsorships. I just think it makes too much sense. All right, let's have some fun. Time to open the box. What is in the box? From the Tampa Bay Rowdies. You guys ready for this? Are you ready for the unboxing? I know this is like all the rage now. And listen, I don't care. I don't care if I'm taking this idea from anybody else, but something came for me. And yeah, we're going to open it right now in front of you guys. I got my trusty knife here. Let's see what is inside. You got to be careful when you open these boxes because you don't know. I saw a guy one time at the radio station open a box like that. And when he opened up the box, like he put the switchblade, the razor blade in there and cut it, and he freaking sliced. It was like this nice, it was a paper, I forgot, it was like a photo thing, like a welcoming thing, and there was a cut right through it because he put his like the switchblade or whatever it is right in the middle. It was, oh my God, I felt so bad. I mean, I didn't do it, so I didn't really care, but it was just amazing. All right, here we go. Unboxing it here. First off, we have, it's a box inside of a box. We always joke about that when Christmas or any kind of gifts. It's a box inside of a box. The Rowdies celebrating 50 years of Rowdy Soccer. Go to rowdysoccer.com for everything we've got going on. If you missed the conversation that we had yesterday with, I always got to close up the knife when you're done. Conversation with our guy, Ryan Helfrich, Rowdy's president. April 26th, the 50th year celebration. August 16th, celebrating the OG Rowdies and inducting a new member into the 75-10 club. October 4th, the modern era night, a new person in the 25-10 club. All right, here we go. Let's see what is in the box from the Rowdies. Oh, first thing we got is a handwritten letter. Jay Recher. How nice of the Rowdies, huh? How nice of these guys. It doesn't just say Jay, it says Jay Recher. Oh, Jay, we are so thankful for your continued and dedicated support of the Tampa Bay Rowdies. We look forward to finding ways to continue our work together. We are thrilled to share with you our 2025 uniform, the anniversary kit featuring the commemorative 50th anniversary crest, vibrant green and gold colors, signature hoop sleeves, and classic collars. These uniforms pay homage to the club's unique heritage. We hope you will join us as we continue to celebrate our 50th anniversary season. The Rowdies communications team. This is why we love the Tampa Bay Rowdies. You guys ready for this? Ooh, baby. Oh, Jesus. Oh. Wow. Look at this bad boy right here. Spectrum. Let me move the box out of the way. Shout out to Charlie. Unbelievable. We got the 50th anniversary magnet there. That's a nice funfetti here. Look at this, man. USL got the collar, got the hoop sleeves. We went with the year on the back, 25, with the Recher on the back. Let's go. Unbelievable, man. This is so nice. You know what I love about soccer kits too is I love the logos in the bottom of the numbers. Look at that. That is legit right there. USL. Love that at the bottom. Recher 25. I got so many jerseys. I have a Recher. I have a Rowdy's Recher 10, 75, and now 25. I love it. I love it. Shout out to our friends at the Tampa Bay Rowdies. Look at these badass things, man. Jeez. Such a huge fan. You guys know I love my Rowdies. I can't wait to be there next Saturday. Thank you, Ryan, Gabby, Jake, and the whole crew. I love you guys so much. This is so awesome. Again, one more time. The front, the hoop sleeves, the collar. The collars, man, just folded on me here. It looks so short when I do that. And then the back, Recher 25. Can't beat it. I love you guys. Thank you so much. I am so excited about this season. Home opener a week from Saturday. Get your tickets, rowdysoccer.com. I know, listen, I know there are a lot of people out there that you may not be a soccer fan. Soccer may not be your thing. You need to go out there and you need to support our team here in the Tampa Bay area. The Rowdies are the best, and it is such a great time when you go to these games. It's right on the water. It's beautiful out there. It's amazing. Just go to one Rowdies game. I'm telling you, you will be hooked. The first time I went years ago, they make you feel so wanted. They make you feel so welcome. They make you feel like you're part of the club. Like I can't say enough nice things about the Tampa Bay Rowdies. Like they are the freaking best. They really are. So go out there, support them. You hear me talk about supporting local, support local, rowdysoccer.com. Go check those guys out now. And again, thank you guys so much for the jersey. There's so many great things. And now you can go get your own jersey. Go to the team store. You can actually do it online. Go to rowdysoccer.com, hit that shop tab, personalize your own jersey. I want to say it's getting close to, when it comes to personalized jerseys, I have around probably 10 to 12 personalized soccer jerseys. I probably have like 4 or 5. That means I probably got more personalized jerseys. Yeah, maybe 12 to 15. But I just think it's so cool, man. The Rowdy's jersey is clean. It's slick. Rowdysoccer.com. Get all the information there and support the team. They're back in action on this weekend, this Saturday, and also next Saturday, the first home game of the year at Al Lang. It'll be the first game at Al Lang since the Hurricanes displaced the team last year. It's going to be an emotional day overall there at Al Lang. I cannot wait to be there. Lightning back in action tonight there in Ottawa against the Senators. Luke Glendening is there on the ice, rejoins the team after the birth of his second child. A salute to the Glendening family. I know he just spoke to our friend Gabby Shirley. Mom's great. She's a champ. One of the coolest things to watch your wife become a mom. And for a second time, it's just as great as the first. It's an exciting time for sure. I think all of us would be in agreement that my wife is a rock star. And all these guys' wives are rock stars. They deal with a lot. When we're on the road, it's probably not talked about much, but they give us the ability to go and have fun and actually play. So I am so thankful for that. That's one thing that we know. Steven Stamkos, what's up, Hammer? We know a lot about that from Steven Stamkos and Victor Hedman and everybody over the years, and the importance put on family, the importance put on the wives and what they're able to do, the way that they welcome in the girlfriends and the wives of the teams, of the team. It's amazing. Those are the little things. We always talk about the little things in sports. What are the little things that set up teams apart, franchises apart, organizations apart? It's stuff like that. It's stuff like reaching out to people's girlfriends and wives as soon as the guy gets traded to be able to welcome them and bring them in here. It's just, that's not every team does that, but the Lightning are a step above. They're a notch above. And that's why I think it's a big reason for their success as well. Andre Vasilevsky, the first goalie off the ice for the Lightning. So Gabby, our good friend, says she expects him to be the starter tonight. Here's the lines for morning skate today. We'll see if they go 12-6 or 11-7. I would think 11-7 again. Gensel, Point, and Kucherov on line 1. Hagel, Cirelli, and Paul line 2. Oliver Bjorkstrand playing on the left side maybe this time. I don't know if that's a little bit of a, who knows. Bjorkstrand, Gord, and Gonsalves. And then that fourth line, you got Gergensen, Glendening, and Chafee with Atkinson rotating in. Defensive pairings, Hedman and Moser, McDonough, Chernak, Lilleberg, and Perbix with Radish as the 7th guy there. So it seems like they're going to go 11-7 again. And still no news on Isaac Howard. Still don't know if we're going to see Connor Geekie. Connor Geekie is another guy that, he's been playing pretty well in Syracuse. I'm a little surprised that we haven't seen him back up at the club, though, because he started out the season, and he got a lot of opportunities, but I don't think he made the most of them. And he's a young kid. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. But he's certainly part of this team's future. And I'm excited when you add Geeky and you add Isaac Howard and you add Dylan Duke into the mix. I mean, for a while there, we've been waiting for a while to see a young forward come up. It's been a while since we've seen a guy like that. And that's what happens when you trade all your first round picks. You don't have the opportunity to develop some of these guys and have them come up and contribute. But I mean, just look at the lineup. It's a pretty veteran laden group. It's been like that for the last couple of years. So we'll see. Tonight, puck drop up there in Ottawa against the Senators, and it is back on FanDuel tonight, if I'm not mistaken. It is. FanDuel Sports Network, Sun against Ottawa. It's a 7 o'clock puck drop, so the pre-games on the network start at 6:30. Tomorrow night at 7 again Saturday night against Buffalo, and then Monday against the Rangers. And then back home next Wednesday against Toronto, next Friday against the Red Wings. So Lightning coming down the home stretch, and we saw what happened last night as the Toronto Maple Leafs beat the Florida Panthers. Alexander Barkov didn't play in that game, so that's obviously a big miss when you know that Matthew Tkachuk's not in the lineup either. So as of tonight, with the Maple Leafs now officially clinching a playoff spot, Washington and Carolina doing the same in the Metro, Toronto has played 75 games, 96 points accrued. The Lightning are in second now, 74 games played with 93 points. Panthers, 75 games with 92 points. So you could look at it one of two ways last night. You could look at it and say, well, if Toronto lost, Panthers probably would have been able to, they would be able to jump the Lightning. But now it's like, all right, we're all here. Toronto wins that game. It kind of pushes Florida down. And if the Lightning win this game tonight, they'll be a point behind the Maple Leafs, but they'll also be 3 points ahead of the Panthers. And if you can win that one-on-one matchup with them and then take care of business the rest of the way, you're assuring yourself home ice in that first-round matchup with them. Because the way it is right now, Ottawa's the next highest team in the Atlantic Division. They have 84 points through 74 games. They're 8 points behind the Florida Panthers with a game in hand. I just don't see how Ottawa is going to catch Florida or the Lightning or the Leafs. So even though it's not locked in as of yet, I think it's pretty fair to say that those will be your top three in the Atlantic. It's been like that pretty much all year long. The way that Toronto plays in the regular season, I'm not putting it past them to be able to kind of ride this out and to be able to get that number one seed in the Atlantic. And if the playoffs started today, they would be the second highest number one seed, because the number one overall seed in the Eastern Conference will be the Metropolitan leaders, the Washington Capitals. So at this juncture, the Caps in round one would play the lowest wild card team, and that would be the Montreal Canadiens, who are tied with 79 points with the New York Rangers, but they played one less game. So that means that that means that the Toronto Maple Leafs, the number one team in the Atlantic, so with quote unquote the number two overall seed in the division, would play the number one wild card. And as of now, that would be the Ottawa Senators. So a north of the border matchup. If the playoffs started today, you'd see the Capitals against the Canadiens, the Maple Leafs against the Ottawa Senators, and then the 2-3 matchups within each division. You'd see the Carolina Hurricanes host the New Jersey Devils, and our Tampa Bay Lightning hosting the Florida Panthers. I know John Cooper is not a huge fan of the same matchups every single year. I mean, it's a lot. Year after year after year, it's either Toronto in the first round or Florida in the first round. And I'm with him. I'm sure I'm with you guys. Give me some different matchups. If you're the two best teams, you should be able to play each other in the Eastern Conference Final, not in the first round of the playoffs. Selfishly, if the Lightning end up playing the Florida Panthers in the first round of the playoffs, which it looks like there's a really good chance of that happening, your boy will be on the road for the first round of the playoffs to see the Florida Panthers host the Tampa Bay Lightning, which looks like it'll be 3 4 and Game 6. But having the Lightning start the playoffs at home, first time in a couple of years that they've done that, to get that Game 1 and Game 2 at Amalie Arena with everybody rocking in that building, I think that starts the postseason on a high note. But just the fact that they're in there, and you have the goaltender and Andrei Vasilevsky, man, you got just as good a chance as anybody. All right, let's bring in, he's one of our highest graded guests in the history of the Jay Recher podcast, 3+ months in, from our friends over at Joe Bucs Fan. He's got the Hall of Fame vote. He also decides whether you're cool enough to sit with him at the cool table in the press box at Raymond James Stadium. It's the one and only Ira Kaufman. What's going on, buddy? How are you?
Jay, how can I translate those high rating marks into some kind of a monetary exchange rate? What am I getting out of that, Jay Bird?
We got to talk to Lee and Steve about that to see how we can do that, because I think that would be fantastic for everybody.
I'm just back from Palm Beach, Jay. Up and back. Quick trip. Went up on Monday. Went to the party Monday night. Heck of a party. And then Tuesday morning, 35 minutes with Todd Bowles. And then I walked right over to Raheem Morris' table, which was 5 feet away, and asked Morris how he's going to chase down the Bucs with his beleaguered Falcons over there, Jake.
I like it. Before we get into the specifics of what was going on there in Palm Beach, it is for you, is a couple of days there, the informality of the whole thing, is that kind of like a throwback with everything is so structured nowadays, everything's at a podium? I like that you're kind of standing around talking to Jason, you're just sitting at a table talking to Todd Bowles. Do you enjoy that? Is it a little bit more of a personal level in an age now where everything is so technologically driven?
Well, there's no question about it, Jay, and some people might be a little surprised that this party, which is usually around the big pool, whether it's the Breakers or the Arizona Biltmore, it's open to the media, Jay. I hope it stays open to the media, because nobody brings in a tape recorder, Jay. They don't put their phone up to the coach that they're talking to or the GM. You said it's informal, and it is. I'll give you an example. I was getting ready to leave. This party started at 7. It was about 9:30. I'm going back to my hotel. Now, Jay, it goes without saying, I ain't staying at the Breakers. Oh, no. I ain't staying at the Breakers because it's $1,800 a night at the break. That's for the Adam Schefters of the world. That's for the Jason Lights of the world. They're all staying at the Breakers. I'm at the Fairfield Inn, 8 miles away, but that's okay.
Yeah.
So I'm getting ready to leave at 9:30. And I'm with Steve Isbitz, who I work with at Joe Bucs Fan. And he spots Sean Payton with his wife there and Diana Rossini, the three of them. And, Isbitz is always thinking ahead, looking for columns and, intriguing stuff. Well, he says to me, Jay, pokes me in the ribs, hey, go up to Payton and ask him if he thinks Levani David's a Hall of Famer. I mean, this is classic Steve Isbitz.
Yeah.
So, I'm there and, I get a suggestion. I'm going to act on it. But I don't want to bust in, 3 people having a conversation. So, Jay, within 5-6 minutes, Sean Payton goes over to the bar to get a drink. I make my move, Recher. I make my move. You've seen me in action.
Yeah.
I pounce on him. And, and I ask him about Levani David. And Sean Payton says, look, first of all, anybody that's still playing at his age at a high level. And he mentioned Bobby Wagner because I think they're very similar, very, very similar. Now, Wagner's got the all pros that David doesn't. But he said, you got to respect the durability, the dedication, and he's still playing, great football. Isbitz leaves. He goes to get a shrimp cocktail or something. He comes back 20 minutes later, Jay. I'm still talking to Sean Payton, Rossini, and Payton's wife. He leaves. He comes back another 25 minutes later, and I'm still there, Jay. I'm still there. So we're talking about Hall of Fame. I told him some of my stories about how I got, helped to get Sapp in, and Keyshawn Johnson called. When I asked Keyshawn, does Sapp belong? He said, yeah, he belongs. He's an asshole, but he belongs. And I turned to Joey Johnston, who you know well, Jay. Yep. This is when the late great Tribune was still around, and I hung up the phone with Keyshawn, thanked him. I turned to Joey Johnson. I said, I got my opening line for my SAP presentation. He's an asshole, but he belongs. Now, the guy from the president of the board stopped my speech right there. He goes, now, wait a minute, Kaufman. Nobody's ever used that word in this room. I said, I didn't call him that. Keyshawn did.
Yeah.
Don't blame me. So anyway,
messenger.
To me, Jay, my best takeaway from Peyton, who seems to be a great guy. I mean, he does. And by the way, and this might affect your betting lines because I know you like to put some money down before the season starts. I think Denver's a team on the rise. I think they're a team on the rise. Peyton is a good coach. He worked wonders with Bo Nix last year. He says they're going to chase down the Chiefs in the AFC West. He thinks they're going to topple them. And the Chiefs have won 8, 9 straight division titles. Right. So anyway, Jay, I say to Peyton, what are you looking for in the draft? He doesn't hesitate. Most coaches, best player available. No. We need a running back.
Wow.
Which he does. So, Jay, I say to Peyton, boy, I sure wish you regret not drafting Bucky Irving, around before the Bucs got him. And he tells me this story, Jay, that he goes to Oregon's pro day. All he's thinking about, his total focus, is on Bo Nix. How's Bo Nix look? Can he do this? Can he do that? How's he in the interview? What's his measurables? What's the medical? And there's Bucky Irving. Yeah, we're working out. And Peyton says to me, I never noticed him. I never looked at him. All I'm thinking about is Bo Nix. Boy, I'll tell you, if the Broncos had a guy like Bucky Irving, who I think, Jay, you tell me what you think. He injected almost all the juice to me in the Buck offense last year. Certainly the running game in particular. Now look, Rashad White ran a little better, Jay, than he has in the past. But Bucky Irving is special. I think he's like a Jamar Gibbs, maybe a notch below, Jay. But that's high cotton right there. I love Bucky Irving.
Yeah, I think what he can do out of the backfield, what he can do in open space, the fact that he's not just a fast guy, he gets tough yards, he gets yards after contact. And you're right, like last year was a little funky when you think about it. We know for the second straight year they went down and come back up. But I mean, think about it, Ira. The week after they lose Godwin and Evans, they go into Kansas City and they take that team to overtime. Like, to me, that's the microcosm of the season right there. It was like, we got to lean on this guy. We got to lean on this. It shows Baker's growth. It shows what Liam Cohen was able to do. You look at some of the wins that they were able to have down the stretch, and having Bucky Irving be a part of it. Like, there was so many. The Bucs had to dig deep last year, and I think they showed a lot of resolve. And I think that bodes well for them moving forward. You said this to me last year, at the beginning of last year, Jay, this team has been remarkably lucky when it came to being healthy. And then Chris Godwin gets banged up. I'm not putting that on you, Sage, but you're right. I mean, they've been able to kind of navigate through that. And now we get to a point of, all right, we kind of know what the team's looking like, and all eyes are on the draft in a couple of weeks. You spoke to Jason Light. What do you get as far as that pick at 19? Are they out of the running for a pass rusher because they brought a Hassan Reddick in? Are they looking linebacker? Do you think corner? What do you think if Jason Light had his druthers and there were 3 great options at those positions at 19? Which direction do you think he'd be leaning?
My impression, my impressions have changed in the last 3 or 4 days.
Oh, okay.
Being around people, I think corner might be the number 1 spot.
I am all over corner. I want Will Johnson from Michigan. I don't know if he's going to fall, but I couldn't agree with you more, Kaufman. You got to get a guy on the outside for this team.
Now, you and I like Zion McCollum, Jay. I got no problem with McCollum. Mm-hmm. He's probably going to get an extension a year from now, and I salute that. I've been chopping up Jamel Dean. It's like an obsession of mine. I even said it to Bowles off to the side. I said, I'm killing this guy on my podcast, Todd. I'm killing him. I said, he is what he is. He doesn't have ball skills. He's not going to develop them at this stage of his career. Not to mention, Jay, his durability is very much in question.
Right.
I got the impression, Jay, that while he might still be on the team, Dean, maybe, I don't think his hold on a starting corner job is very secure. I don't. I think they think they can do better. I think the feeling is he's okay. Okay is not good enough for a team with Super Bowl aspirations, Jay.
Agreed.
It's not. Um, Speaking about, I've been talking about this Campbell kid from Alabama. Even though I got to say, Jay, both Light and Bowles, and Buck fans are going to cringe when I say it, Jay, but it's true. They think Servassier Dennis can be a heck of a player if he stays healthy. I mean, a heck of a player. And we got to admit it, Jay, when he's played, which hasn't been that often, he's flashed some skills. He really has. He's fast. He's instinctual.
But do you
and
think that's a shortcoming, Ira? Do you think that's a shortcoming of any coach or GM? Because they as much as they want to look about the whole team, I feel like sometimes even the best coaches and GMs, you fall in love with the potential of what a guy can do instead of being real and saying like, well, if he's not available, it doesn't matter what he could do, Ira, because you can't be in that same position you were in 2024 that you will be in 2025. Because if he can't stay healthy, it doesn't matter what he could do.
Yes. Now they picked up a linebacker, Walker, which they also like him for depth purposes. And of course, Levani's back. And if David had retired, all we'd be talking about is they better get an inside linebacker.
Right.
But David can't go on forever. He can't. By the way, one quick thing more about Sean Payton.
Yeah.
And Jay, you were at the game, and I was too. The Bucs were 2-0. Here come the Broncos. They made the Bucs look really bad that day, Jay. Really bad. I think it was 26-7.
Mm-hmm.
The Bucs were never in the game, Jay. They weren't in the game.
Close. It wasn't even close.
And looking back at the 17-game season, the 10-7 record, I think you could argue that that's the only game that the Bucs were outclassed. Basically, was the Denver game. The Chiefs didn't do it. The Niners didn't do it. The Eagles certainly didn't do it. It was the Broncos. So I think Sean Payton's got something going on in Denver. As far as the Bucs, Jay, the one thing that they continue to be lucky about, and I'm not going to talk about the backup quarterback situation because I obsessed about it for a couple of years, and fans are tired of it, and they're saying, "Well, if you lose your quarterback, you're done." Jay, well, I'm not arguing that, but Jay, what if the guy's out for a month? What if Mayfield's out for a month? I don't want to go 1-3. I don't want to go 1-3. I want to go at least 2-2.
Right.
And the fact that this guy's thrown 11 passes on the pro level, Trask, it concerns me a little bit. But Jay, in terms of the health, the Bucs have had an incredible run under center. You got to go back like 7 or 8 years for a starting quarterback for the Bucs to miss a game due to injury. It just doesn't happen. Brady was incredibly durable. Mayfield's, 2 years doesn't miss a start, and even Jameis, he didn't get hurt. So they've been very lucky under center. I think this is a very good team, Jay. I don't say it very often. I like this roster, and they're going to bump it up a little bit on draft day.
What did you get from Todd Bowles about his assessment with the team? I like that he kind of called the team out a little bit, Ira. You got to have killer instinct. You don't want to hear that from your head coach. And you don't want to hear that on a defense that has Vita Vea. Because if I would have told you that that's what Todd Bowles said about the Bucs, I think people on the outside, well, you got Vita Vea, you got Levante David, you got Antoine Winfield Jr. What do you mean you don't have a killer instinct, right? And then I love that he's bringing in a game manager.
Yes.
I think, a lot of people wanted him running him out of town. I was one of the few people that was like, I am not quick at all to hand this thing over to Liam Cohen, because being an offense coordinator, being a head coach are two completely different things. But Ira, we got to give Todd a little credit here. This is a guy that is a veteran coach that is getting rid of some coaches on the defensive side of the ball, bringing in other coaches to kind of make up for some of his deficiencies. He's loyal, but he also knows when to move on, maybe a little bit longer. But I'd rather a guy be a little bit more loyal, because I think that bodes well in the long term. Right? If you know that a guy's not just going to throw you out with the bathwater, I think that helps free agents. That helps people wanting to come here. I think Todd has improved, And I don't know if he gets enough credit for doing so. What did you get from him when you spoke to him?
I saw a man, Jay, that is comfortable in his own skin, which I think is important, has his ego in check, and he's aware of his strengths and weaknesses. Let's take game management, for example. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb here, Jay. Tell me what you think. But bringing in this guy from Jacksonville, I think maybe the Glazers might have played a role. I'm not saying they demanded it. I'm not saying they ordered Bowles to get some help there. But the Glazers, they're not dummies when it comes to football. May not know the X's and O's, but they know what's in front of them, and they're no fools. They know that they needed a pass rush, and they know they needed help with game management. And Bowles embraced it. He did. I think he realizes, Jay, that an offense that averaged 29.5 points was kind of left in the lurch last season. That's on him. He accepts it. 7 interceptions. Todd, I just can't get over it. I can't get over it, Jay. 7 interceptions.
Right.
I mean, that's a good month for Diggs.
The Cowboys.
That is just awful. Now, part of it is the pass rush. Even though they get 45 sacks every year, Jay, every year with Bowles, they're going to end up with 45 sacks. But that doesn't tell the full story, Jay. It's the consistent pressure. And I even wrote a column today where I said, Bowles has been going over the tapes of every snap, 1,000 snaps last year defensively. When he came to the 2 Atlanta games, he had to reach for the mailbox. I mean, those games are haunting him, absolutely haunting him. You got an immobile quarterback like Cousins, who wasn't playing bad at that time, but he can't move, Jay. He can't move on a good day, never mind coming off an injury. And the guy's got 7 seconds, to play pitch and catch. I was at the game in Atlanta. I mean, it was just appalling. Buck fans, and you can imagine Bowles just looking at it. Here comes Reddick. Bowles is very high on Reddick and what he thinks he can contribute. Jay, one thing we can all agree on, Hassan Reddick is a motivated man in 2025.
You worried about him?
Rosenhaus has been telling Reddick, Jay, you want to make money next year? You better have a good season for the Bucs.
You worried about him in Tampa Bay or no?
No, he is what he is. I think he's going to get 11 sacks. I think he'll be negligible against the run. He doesn't really care about it. And like Bowles says, if a guy's a good pass rusher, that's what's going to ask him to do. They're not going to drop Reddick into coverage in the left flank, nor should they. That drives Buck fans crazy, Jay. But you know what I think Bowles' attitude is towards that, Jay? Like last year, they're not getting there anyway, so I might as well ask them to cover a spot. I mean, that's not going to be the case with Reddick, and I hope Diaby bounces back from what I think was a little bit of a down year.
Yeah, I'm sick of the pressures. Don't tell me about the pressures. Give me sacks. Enough of the pressure. Almost horseshoes and hand grenades. I think the Hassan Reddick. I don't see how it can be not a great move for the Buccaneers for a multitude of reasons. I'm not worried about the Jets. That was a dumpster fire. I'm not blaming that on him. The fact that they traded for him and they knew that they weren't going to be able to sign him, that's on them. That's not on him. He was very vocal about that. I also don't think that Jason Light and Todd Bowles bring him in here if they don't know what he can bring to the table, and vice versa. I think he knows what he's getting into. He's going to a defense with Levante David. He knows Mike Evans. He knows he's going with Todd Bowles. And there's proof of concept. He's had a 1-year prove-it deal before with Carolina, and look at what he was able to do. He was able to parlay that into a deal with the Eagles. Everything is out in front for you for Hassan Reddick here. If he does fantastic and he signs a multi-year deal with somebody else, whatever. But he's here. You can rush with 4 hopefully now, and now Todd can get a little bit more creative. And then kind of going back into our cornerback situation, now you don't have these guys covering for a bunch. Now maybe you could play a little bit more press man instead of having to play so far off. People get pissed off like, oh, I can't believe they're playing off. They don't get to the quarterback. So if he's sitting back there slicing and dicing, I'd rather give him a 7-yard pass than a 37-yard pass because we can't get to the quarterback. But you mentioned the Falcons, and you wrote a great article on JoeBucksFan.com about we've got to crack the code. And again, everybody out there, check out JoeBucksFan.com, listen to Ira's podcast and everything. Stephen Lee and Ira, they never sleep, these guys. They're nuts. But Raheem Morris, we've got to crack the code. What does he think, Ira, is that secret recipe to finally usurp the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the top of the division?
I think he's thinking about pass rush. He doesn't seem concerned at all, Jay, about Michael Penix. They're all in on Penix. He says from Arthur Blank on down. We all believe in Penix. And he did some good things, Jay. He only started 3 games at the end of the year, but they averaged 32 points in those 3 games.
Right.
It's not his fault they don't have any defense. You think the Bucs don't have a pass rush, Jay? Have you seen the Falcons? I mean,
Terrible.
absolutely terrible.
Terrible.
They lose Grady Jarrett. That's not going to help them up front. They got to hit a home run, the Falcons. Now, they don't have the number 6 pick. They're like in the middle of the first round.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they take the green kid, and take a chance on him. I think the Buck roster is considerably better. I like their running game. Their offensive line, Atlanta. They got, Allegier's not a bad back, and Robinson's great. I think Drake London is really good, Jay. I like Drake London.
Yeah, so do I.
But they got nobody on defense. Absolutely nobody. But they did beat the Bucs twice, Jay, and that's shameful. Shame on the Bucs for losing twice to Atlanta.
Yeah, I did not buy the hoopla with them before the season. They brought in Simmons, and it was like, great. He plays the exact same position as your best defensive player, Jesse Bates.
Yeah,
so you got 2 safeties that just play well off the line. Like, all right, that's great. Go stop the run if you can. And then you're bringing Matthew Judon coming off of a season-ending injury. And yeah, towards the end of the season, they had some more sacks, but I mean, did not make near the impact that you would think that you would need to if you're going to, take over and be a team in that division. Are you worried at all about the other 2 teams? I feel like this is a 2-dog race for the division with the Bucs and the Falcons, Ira.
Well, the early odds are out, and I pay attention after the draft when they post the over/under win totals from Vegas. But right now, the Bucs are at 9.5, and I think Atlanta's 7.5, which is a step down. Atlanta won 8 games last year. I think 9.5 is a little low, Jay, for the Bucs. I'm bullish on this team, and I don't feel that way every year like this team. Look how they played against Washington, Jay. The defense couldn't get off the field. Mayfield only got 7 possessions. 7. They scored on 4 of them. 2 field goals, 2 touchdowns. Give this offense some more opportunities, Jay. That's another part of this whole defensive resurrection. And all of a sudden the Bucs are averaging 32 points. I mean, this is a really good offense, Jay. They got a great kicker. Irving's not going anywhere. He's not going to get worse. They brought the offensive line back. Mayfield's coming off a career season. I think Otten's coming on. I think he's a middle of the pack tight end. I think he might be top 10 before the season's over. Jay, I have confidence in Chris Godwin. If it wasn't Chris Godwin, maybe I'm a little worried. Maybe he's got to wait till week 4, but Godwin's going to do everything in his power, Jay, to be out there for week 1. He does what he does. He does the dirty work. McMillan came on strong. They might draft a receiver like in the 3rd round or something. Jay, this is a good Tampa Bay football team.
Yeah, I think one of the big things about Chris Godwin is that even if he's not 100% to start the season, nobody's going to panic. Everybody's going to be like, that's fine, Chris. Take your time. We got Jalen McMillan. If he would have went to New England or he would have went to Jacksonville, he went to other these spots, and he wasn't wide receiver 1 in week 1, people would have been losing their minds. Here at home with the team that loves you, if there's a little bit of a grace period for him to kind of grow into the season, because we saw that a couple years ago when he missed, he wasn't, at 100% that next year. I don't think people are going to freak out because you have Mike Evans and that it's a long-term play.
Jay, one more quick thing, Jay. We were talking about the Buck defense. One guy we haven't mentioned, which he's a catalyst. He's integral, is Winfield, Jay. Winfield. I asked Bowles directly about him. Kind of a lost season for Winfield last year. If they can get him back to 2023, Antoine Winfield, that makes a huge difference, Jay.
Yeah, he's a guy, usually looking for your turnovers coming, from the back end and your corners. It's usually the safeties for the Buccaneers, for sure. Before I let you go, I want to ask you about our good pal, Sam Rosen. 40 years with the New York Rangers. This is going to be his last season. They're fighting for a playoff spot. You saw our guy, Phil Esposito, go up there, John Davidson. They're actually going to call a nationally televised game on TNT, Sam and JD, which is going to be great. But I mean, I know that's one of your old friends and just one of the best in the business. And people forget too, there's a lot of Buccaneer highlights over the years with Sam Rosen's voice on it. He did a lot of Bucs games here in the Tampa Bay area. Just, a guy that's so influential to my career and a guy that I consider a mentor. Just your thoughts on Sam finally hanging it up.
I go back, you mentioned 40 years, Jay. I can top that. I go back almost 50 years with Sam Rosen, which tells you how old I am, Jay. And I go to one Lightning game a year. I go with Roy Cummings and Tom Jones. We used to cover this team way back when. And so we pick out a game. I picked out the Ranger game because they only came in once this year. I think it was late December, Jay. So I came and I thought Sam might be downstairs, eating with us, but I saw that he wasn't. It was about an hour before the game. So I took the elevator. I took the freight elevator up. I said, all right, let me see what's going on. I get off at the floor, the media, floor. And there's Rosen by himself in one of those cubicles. And he's reading the stats and he's making notes. That's Sam Rosen, right, Jay? That's what he does. And familiarizing himself with all the key points that he wants to make that night, mostly about the Lightning, because he knows everything about the Rangers. And he turns around and he sees me. Well, what are you doing here? I said, I came to see you. I came to see you. Jay, I started my career, and I'm dating myself, 1976, Jay. You weren't even born. 1976. United Press International, which used to be the second wire service competing against AP, in New York. Our office was in the Daily News building with the Globe in the lobby from the Superman movies. That was our building, 42nd Street, 3rd Avenue. And here I am. I'm a clerk. I'm a sports clerk, just out of NYU grad school, 22 years old. And Sam Rosen is running UPI Audio, 1,000 radio stations across the country. And we got to know each other. Jay, we played on the softball team, UPI in Central Park against the New York Post and the Daily News and AP and the New York Times. Anyway, and Sam was he was a good hitter. Sam could hit. And Jay, one quick story about Sam, which you don't know about, but about a year later, maybe 78 before Sam left UPI, he hired somebody. He hired a kid right out of college. Nobody ever heard of this kid. And Sam said, this kid's going places. Kid's name was Keith Olbermann. Sam hired him for UPI Audio. So I know Olbermann almost 50 years, but you talk about a legend, Jay. And he's not a homer. He's not a Ranger homer.
No.
He plays it right down the middle.
Balanced, man.
Nobody has a bad word to say about this guy, Jay. Nobody.
He's the man, the legend, Sam Rosen. Congratulations, 40 years there. Those calls that it influenced me to get into this industry. So, and getting to meet him over the years, they say, don't meet your heroes, don't meet your mentors. And I couldn't disagree with that more, because when you meet a guy like Sam Rosen, it is definitely.
I got one more for you, Jay.
Go ahead,
I'll make it quick. All right, Jay, I've been watching hockey for 60 years. And I'll say this. I haven't seen too many guys with better vision and better passing skills than Nikita Kucherov. I just haven't.
Just don't
He's amazing.
Don't pass up empty net shots and everything will be fine. Everybody will be happy. Ira Kaufman, JoeBucksFan.com. Go check the guys out. Especially, we've got to crack the code. Crack that code with Ira talking to Bulls and Raheem Morris and everybody out there in Palm Beach. Great stuff. These guys are all over that. Why do they want Tyke Smith more conditioned, the Buccaneers? You'll find out over on JoeBucksFan.com. Tell Steve, Lee, and everybody I said hello. Ira, always appreciate your time, my friend. We'll talk again soon.
Enjoyed it, Jay. Thanks.
Thanks, pal. The man, the myth, the legend, Ira Kaufman. Always great to catch up with him. Sam Rosen. It's sad, man. It is sad, because this is a guy that I grew up listening to. And, I always said that, in 1994, you're 9 years old. Those are your formative years. The music that you listen to, the teams that you root for, that time, it almost like sets you up for life. And that Ranger team in 94, with Mark Messier guaranteeing victory in the Eastern Conference Final over the New Jersey Devils, and then going out and scoring a hat trick. The soundtrack of those games that were so pivotal in my fandom, Sam Rosen was that guy. He was the voice of my childhood. And I always, I started looking at sports completely different. Hockey became my favorite sport. I looked at broadcasting completely different. It wasn't just some guy that was speaking during the game. I kind of looked at it as, man, maybe I can do that in someday if the MLB or the NHL doesn't come calling. And again, once you end up meeting somebody like that, it's so worth it. You feel so grateful to have somebody like that in your corner. So shout out to Ira Kaufman, shout out to Sam Rosen, and a shout out to our very next guest, live from the airport, looking good, looking sharp. Yeah, we can hear you.
Is this thing on? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Is this thing on?
Is this thing 1, 2?
Ed Encina joins us for his weekly visit at 1:30. What's going on, buddy? How's the oos?
How we doing? We doing all right?
Yeah. Well, are you going to Ottawa?
No, I'm not going to Ottawa. I'm making a little side trip before Buffalo. I can't tell you where I'm going, but if you think about where things are in comparison to where Buffalo is, you might have a little bit of a guess or an understanding where I'm going. I feel like you can't hear me because I'm talking to the headphones. But,
no, I can hear you.
Yeah, so I'm gonna be in Buffalo, MSG. But I'm making a little side trip before then. Work side trip. So you'll find out soon.
What the hell's going on, man? You got me waiting here. You got me like, I want to know these things.
Well, here's the thing I want to know. I want to know about Ira legging out a double in one of those softball games, those UPI softball games. That's what I want to see. You think we're getting footage of that?
Can you imagine who was in those games though? Like all those.
No, it sounds amazing.
If it was Ira and Sam Rosen, like who the hell was Larry Brooks playing for the New York Post at that time? Like that would have been nuts. Lightning on a 4-game winning streak, obviously in action tonight against Ottawa. Since the last time we talked, Nikita Kucherov. What was that like? What were your mentions like when Nikita Kucherov passed up that empty net goal?
Yeah, they were pretty crazy. I think the whole game there was a little crazy in that game, but yeah, I mean, and we know when we know about Nikita, we know what he's doing. He's trying to pass off to a teammate to get them a goal, but it was mind-boggling to watch, to be honest, because obviously game on the line still there, and just flick it in and it's pretty much over. They made an adventure out of it, which I know it was kind of in retrospect it's funny to watch, but man, like I was and the way Nikita thinks the game, we all know it's like a different level. So, but in a situation like that, you're obviously like, what's he thinking? Right. But yeah, I don't know. I know that I don't know. I can't even explain it, But obviously, that second time he was able to get it to someone, and they were able to ice that game. But yeah, the dimensions were crazy. I mean, it's actually funny. I think the interest in this team is really starting to pick up right now. Everyone's following the ifs, ands, or buts about clinching a playoff berth, and then you have the division at stake here. So there's a lot of things to kind of follow with the standings and just the team. There's the everyone's asking about Isaac Howard if they're not asking about Nikita Kucherov passing up on an open net. So there's a lot of stuff that's kind of all in the air right now.
Tell us about Isaac Howard. Why isn't he here? I mean, some people are. I mean, we've been all over this for like the last 2 months about the possibility, and it wasn't. And that's why like people were trying to come at me like, oh, blah blah blah, this and that. And I'm like, whoa. We didn't bring this up. This was a conversation that Julian himself spoke on during the fireside chats. He's the guy that opened the door to this conversation. It wasn't something that and if we did listen, if we were just talking about it and it was just pure speculation and we're having fun and we know that Ryan Leonard and we saw Perreault make his debut last night for the Rangers, like it's just natural that we would have this discussion. But the reason why it's been so we've been so on top of it is because Julian talked about it when we had our fireside chats. So what do we know? Why haven't we heard anything yet? Is it salary cap related? Is there anything more to it?
So I think there's a lot of complexities to it that probably some people don't necessarily understand, especially related to cap. There's some contracts that you can move and you can send a guy down to the minors. There's other ones that you can't and still have them accessible before the playoffs. And this is something I actually just learned about. Honestly, I learned about some of the stuff from talking to Cam Atkinson a couple of weeks ago, about his situation and stuff that he learned about capology. He got a basic crash course over the past month when he got sent down the first time. So there's some things that are kind of in the weeds about that. Right now they don't have the cap space, so they would have to make a move and move a guy right now. And there's also the fact of whether the Lightning are obviously willing to, basically let Isaac Howard burn the first year of his entry level contract by playing at the NHL level this year in a regular season game. Obviously the playoffs really doesn't matter, but when you see guys like Ryan Leonard and guys like that playing, those teams are basically allowing these guys to basically burn that first entry level deal. And hockey deals are on the way that the pace of them is like, they're pretty cheap in the beginning, and you can pay a guy with a signing bonus and stuff like that, but then you get a bridge deal, and then that third contract is really get paid. Right. But it's more of like, now if you burn that deal, then you basically have one less year of player control on the guy before it becomes a UFA, and then you're also it just allows him to make a lot of money quicker, right? So there's that question. There's also like, if the team stayed right now what they're at the salary cap, you couldn't even think about bringing him up to the NHL level until probably the last 2 games of the year. I think.
Why those 2 games? I've heard that too.
So the way right now, I think they have $8,000, right? So it basically, the cap is a daily accruement. So yeah, and this is one thing that the Lightning haven't been able to do in past years because they've been an LTI for a lot of it. So every day you gain cap space. And that's actually why Cam Atkinson, never really reported to Syracuse. He was basically sitting around for a good week, practicing on his own in the rink, not with the team, and until they could accrue enough cap space to bring him back up and add him to the roster. So those are things that, like, basically, if they didn't make a move to send some guy down, they have to wait till they have that money to accrue to get the amount of cap space to be able to add him to the roster. The space is there. The roster spot is there. They just don't have the cap space to do it right now. So there's that. And also, too, like, there is a general philosophy here amongst the Lightning, I do believe it plays a factor here, is that the Lightning are very proud in the sense that they don't bring guys up until they're 100% convinced that they're going to help the NHL team, right? And, I know Connor Geeky made the team, and then he went back down because he probably hit kind of a little bit of a rookie wall there. He's doing really well in Syracuse now, by the way. Yeah. But, and I'm not to say that they don't feel like Isaac Howard is NHL ready, but, they're not going to necessarily rush him. And I think that the other factor is that when we heard them talk, I think Julian said this in that fireside chat, it's like, he's done everything that they've asked him to do. He put on some weight. He got better with his defensive game. He, obviously we've seen the dynamic kind of skill he has on the offensive side, but it is a different game, especially when, like, I would hate to see this team bring up Isaac Howard and really put him in like a fringe bottom 6 role. That's not where Isaac Howard is going to be able to flourish, right. And, I think we've seen this sometimes with some other players. I'm not comparing these guys anyways, but Barboulay never found a spot on this team because there wasn't a spot for him. Right now, I know that that might be angering the fans right now. Like, where do you put Isaac Howard in a situation where he's going to succeed from day one? And that's the main question here, I think. And whether that's on the NHL roster, whether that's, getting a few games in Syracuse, whether that's, whatever that is, And so there's a lot of things in mind. There's a development aspect of it, which the Lightning never fall short on, to be honest, especially with and they're going to be super careful with this guy because they haven't had a prospect of his ilk in quite a while. Right. There's the cap aspect of it, and there's the money part of it too. So the contract part of it too. So there's a lot of different things at play here. Having said that, it is a little odd to see these other guys play, and these other guys are Hobie Baker finalists too, and not see and wonder kind of where Isaac Howard is. I think we'll have some resolution on it in the next few days. But yeah, it is. I think, and I know how the fan base is. That I think it's more concerning day by day when you don't hear anything. But let's also think about the Lightning here. The Lightning don't let anything be known until the smoke comes out of the top of Amalie Arena. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that they're working on this, and they're working if there's anyone who can make a contract work with the cap stuff, it's Julian. And, I think that it's quote unquote in process. But when we get some resolution to it, I'm not so sure, but I think it's coming down pretty, the next few days, I would say.
Does he burn a year of his entry-level contract if he joins the team just in the playoffs?
No.
Okay.
He can, that wouldn't count.
Year?
Yeah.
All right. So let me ask you that then. So if you were a betting man, Mr. Encina, do you think that we see Isaac Howard with the Tampa Bay Lightning in the regular season, in the playoffs, or not at all?
I don't know. I was under, a couple of days ago, I was under the idea that he'd probably get a few games in Syracuse, and you'd bring him. Sometimes you want a guy like to kind of give that energy back, to a team, especially as they go into the postseason. I honestly do not know what's going to happen right now. I do think that just because I don't necessarily know where Ike's camp is at right now, I think I go grasp what the Lightning are feeling, but right now I don't have a great grasp of what his camp is thinking. I think that, push comes to shove here. I don't think they want to let him go back to college, obviously.
I don't think that's happening.
And so I think something will happen to the sense that, there's something that I think there's a part of me that thinks, a big part of me that thinks that we will see him in a Lightning uniform this season at some point. How about that?
Regular season or playoffs? At some point.
All right. Let's say the last couple games of the regular season. How about that?
Okay. And then, so what about this aspect of, can he go down to the minors and then come up? Because did I read something incorrectly that if he goes to the minors, he can't play with the big club this year or something like that? So
they can sign him to an amateur tryout initially.
Okay, that would preclude him from joining.
And then once he signs he can sign an entry level contract. That's after, like, it's when the entry level contract is signed, right? So, actually, I did misspeak here, Jay. When you think about it, if he does play, I believe if he does play at any point at the NHL level this year, he would burn a year, even if it's in the playoffs.
Okay.
So, that is so it's kind of the order. Like if he signed a amateur tryout contract and then signed an entry level contract that would, for this season, starting this season, then that would burn a year, whether that's in the, but I mean, so basically it's just when you sign that deal.
So you think the last couple of games of the regular season, we could see Isaac Howard with the Lightning? I love that. That's what people want to know, man. I mean, I worry less about where he fits in. I think he can fit in. We automatically think that guys can't do it. They can't play the second line. They can't play on the third line. Just because Alex Barré-Boulet, and I'm not saying you're saying this,
right.
Because Alex Barré-Boulet couldn't do it doesn't mean that Isaac Howard can't do it.
No,
right? Like, I have faith that if you could put him in there, I think he could play on the. Am I putting him with Point and Kucherov? No, not necessarily, but I think the kid's talented enough where he could play with Hagel and Cirelli. I think if you're going to put Paul up there, I think he could play with two veterans in Gordon Bjorkstrand. I wouldn't want to see him on the fourth line, but I think as a middle six guy, he gives you a completely different look than anybody that you have on the roster right now. And you know as well as I do, Ed, secondary scoring in the playoffs is paramount. The stars often cancel each other out, and you need those guys on the second and third lines to be able to put the puck in the back of the net. And who better than a guy that is a Hobart Baker finalist? You're not asking the guy to play 75 games. I mean, you're asking the guy to, hey, man, we know you just had a hell of a year. It didn't go how you wanted to go down the stretch. Join us for this sprint, and let's see if we can make some noise in the postseason.
Yeah, no, I mean, a couple of years ago, we saw it with Matthew Nyes, right? We saw it, firsthand in that first round of the playoffs. He basically leaves the Frozen Four in Tampa, and then goes across the room to the Toronto locker room. So, and he contributed at an NHL level. And I don't necessarily think anyone expects Isaac Howard to come in and blow the doors off, score a point and a half a game like he was doing in college. But I do believe that his more than anything, his pace, the pace of his play, can certainly help them, whether it's in a second or potentially a third line role. I would just hate to think that this is for a fourth line thing. Like that just doesn't make any sense to me, because I've seen a lot of guys who are talented offensive players get put in those situations that really, they're not really set into a situation to succeed. So, but yeah, I mean, like, listen, I hear it all. I know everyone's excited about it, and like I said, I'm a little confused about what is taking so long, but because it's taking so long, I think that they're working really, really, really hard to get this thing done, and it's just a matter of when and where, right? So, but yeah, I mean, like, it's hard. It's really hard to gauge, because, like I said, like, there's like one thing I know about Isaac Howard from covering him from draft day on to all these development camps and everything like that is that, like, he's gonna reach his level. You know what I mean? He's gonna seek his level, because he does have work ethic. He does have an immense amount of talent, and I think more than anything, he's got a really good support system around him. He's had that from day one, whether it's his coaches, his trainers. His coaches at Michigan State were great. His coach at Michigan State was basically his coach with the U.S. developmental program when he got drafted out of. So, but he does have, as much as people probably see Isaac Howard for his swagger, he does have a hunger to just reach his level and be the best he can. So I think that's one thing, that whether we see that now, or we see that in a week, or we see that in a month, or if we see that next year, that we're going to see it.
Yeah, I'm excited. What are you expecting from the team tonight? It looks like Andrei Vasilevsky is going to get the nod in goal. Luke Glendening is back. 4 games in a row that they've won. I mean, they just got to kind of keep that foot on the gas pedal, right, Ed? I mean, when you're looking at this situation, Toronto wins last night. You can put some more distance between you and Florida tonight. I mean, the more games you win here in the next week or so, you're pretty much locking in home ice advantage in first round of the playoffs.
Yeah, for sure. And when you look at the schedule, like, and what the Lightning are up against versus what those other two teams are up against in terms of, opponent strength of schedule and the back-to-backs, the Lightning probably have the most favorable schedule out of 3. So, and tonight they do have the dangling carrot, basically, of, win and you're in terms of clinching a postseason berth. So, and even if they, get a point, they can win if one of Montreal or Columbus loses. They can even back in if they lose and both of those teams lose too. So, they have something to play for sure tonight. So I think the urgency will no doubt be there. I think that it's just sticking. I did like the Islanders game the other night. I think that they kind of learned from the things that they kind of got, the habits that maybe they were displaying in that first Islanders game. In terms of shutting it down and closing out a team, and sticking to that two goals or less philosophy of really playing some tight hockey. And as you know, the Islanders are a team that can really kind of frustrate you into playing a certain way. And I think that the Lightning were able to kind of overcome that. But I think tonight also too, I mean, Ottawa might be a team that they might face. So
you never know.
We talked about. I mean, I don't know if you watched the Canes Caps game last night, but
oh my God,
there's some post. This is a time of the year where there's that postseason message sending comes out, and if those two teams face each other in the second round, like that's going to be a fun series to watch, just because everything that's kind of table set there. So who knows about that? Ottawa's a tough physical team. I mean, they play hard. They always give the Lightning a tough game. Even when they haven't been as good as they are this year, they always seem to play them tough. The Lightning don't seem to play very well in Ottawa, over the years in general. So, I think they'll go into it all knowing all that and knowing kind of what's at stake here. And again, the other thing is the division. And I talked to Victor Hedman about it before they went on the road. And it is one of those things where in the past, the Lightning really haven't cared about it. Like the whole philosophy of they've won a President's Trophy and got knocked out in the first round. They've been the 3rd seed in the division and won a Stanley Cup. But I think this year it's probably a little bit different, because you don't want to be that 3rd team, right? You don't want to not have home ice for at least that first round. You'd love to have it for 2 or a couple rounds. So I think that there's an added motivation there to to win the division, or at the very least get in that second spot. No matter who they play. And again, we've talked about this all the time. Is the tough part is there's going to be 3 really good teams in that division that come out, and one of them's not going to make it out of the first round. So you want to have every advantage that you can. And for this team, home ice has been a really good advantage. Especially when you look at kind of their road record. It's there's a big disparagement there between the two. So yeah, and like I said, that's not to say that that's the big difference, because I think they had a great home record when they lost to the Leafs a couple of years ago and lost three games in overtime at home. So it's not a guarantee by any means, but it's still, at least it puts you in the situation you want to succeed going in.
What do you got right now on TampaBay.com/sports there at the Tampa Bay Times, buddy?
Well, I'm flying to a place.
Mysterious place.
Flying to mysterious place. And, oops. Sorry. Yeah, I'm flying to a mysterious place in New York State somewhere that I can't tell you about. But yeah, I mean, like I said, we'll be on the road in Buffalo and in New York, and I think by that time they'll clinch. But I think it'll be interesting to see. I think that the way that I think for the most part, when you take out a few games of like the past, what would this be, 4 to 6 weeks, the Lightning played some pretty good hockey that they can really kind of hang their hat on in terms of being proud of and going into the playoffs. So there's that. Also, I know that there's been a lot of discussion about Kucherov and why isn't he getting a lot of that attention and respect that he has, and I'm going to take a good look at some of the numbers there, because I do think that if you criticize him last year for having all those empty net goals, the power play hasn't been great this year. Well, It hasn't been. How do I say this? It hasn't been as great as it was last year, right? I mean, they're still a top 6 unit, right? But I'm sure that there's a lot of guys, including Nikita Kucherov, who are frustrated about the way the power play has played. But that means that he's played a lot better in 5-on-5. And if that's the way that sometimes people want to judge you because you're not getting all these power play goals, you're not getting all these empty net goals, I think Nikita Kucherov is probably having as good a season as anyone else. I think he's played a lot more responsible two-way game this year than maybe he has last year. And I think the tough part about Kuch is that when he does have a brain cramp or he doesn't play well in his own end, it's egregious, and so it stands out a lot more. But I honestly think that all in all, he's played. It's hard to compare his game to the 144 point season, or even the first Hart season. It's really hard, but in a lot of ways, what he's done this year, I think might even stand out more, especially in the sense of 5-on-5. And again, knowing that this is what this team needed. This team needed to play a better 5-on-5 game, both sides of the puck, and he's really kind of given that. So, remember last year when what they needed is they needed him to shoot, because they didn't have Vasi, and he put up a bunch of shots, and he always gives his team what they need when they need it the most. And more than anyone, we know this from watching it every day. This team goes by the way he goes.
Yeah, he's the straw that stirs the drink.
Right, he's a straw that stirs the drink, like pace, momentum, offense, defense, everything. So, but it does suck, because I do think that no matter what, people just don't have eyes on him, I think, as much as they do other people, and that's something that you're never gonna change.
They're hating too, so I don't even know if they'll be a finalist because they be hating so much. That's just the way it goes. Let's not forget, he's part of that leadership core that's taken over since Steven Stamkos has been gone too. So I think his leadership off the ice too, I think, doesn't get mentioned nearly enough. Eddie in the Yard on Twitter/X. Go check him out, guys. I say this all the time. Support our friends at the Tampa Bay Times. Sign up that subscription today. Buy it as a gift. Support local, especially we saw the news today with Tropicana Field and St. Pete City Council approving the bonds. Like, the people that had that news first were the Tampa Bay Times. Nobody's traveling with the Tampa Bay Lightning right now. The only person is our guy Ed Encina from the Tampa Bay Times. Ed, appreciate it, buddy. Safe travels. See you next week. Talk to you next Thursday, my friend. Thank you.
See you, Jay. Thanks, buddy.
He's probably going to Monday Night Raw or Cooperstown or something. He's going to Jey Uso's, wherever the hell he's going. That's why you got to follow Ed. That's why you got to subscribe to the Tampa Bay Times, because you never know. Ed's going to be writing some crazy stories. He'll be somewhere in North America. All right, that's going to wrap it up for me. A big thank you to all of our guests today. What a show. Brady North, assistant race hitting coach, fantastic. Ira Kaufman from Joe Bucs fan, and of course, Ed Encina from the Tampa Bay Times. And shout out to my friends again. If you're just joining me here, shout out to our friends at the Tampa Bay Rowdies. Check out this bad boy right here. Tampa Bay Rowdies 2025. You got Jay Recher. Love you guys. You guys are the best. Follow me on all social media platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok. I am everywhere. Share and subscribe as well on YouTube. Back in action. Eric Erlinson wasn't with us on Wednesday. He'll join us tomorrow at 1 o'clock. And, of course, we have some more irons in the fire as well to find out what is going on in the Tampa Bay area. That'll do it for me. I love you all. We'll see you tomorrow at noon right here on the J.